Welcome to Genuine Healing on News for the Soul, where real transformation unfolds in real time. Join world-renowned energy healer Jen Ward and Marvin Schneider live every Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time and available worldwide across all major podcast platforms. Each episode explores the deeper patterns shaping your life and works directly to clear them so that you can live a life of passion and purpose in higher consciousness. If you'd like to be featured on an upcoming episode, visit genuinehealing.com/on-air and register your interest to join Jen and Marvin on air on one of their upcoming healing topic episodes. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear is not just someone else's story. It's a reflection of what may be ready to shift within you.
We are on the air again on Genuine Healing on News for the Soul with your hosts, me, Marvin Schneider.
And me, Jen Ward. Hi, everybody. Hi, Marvin.
Hi, Jen. Hi, the listener. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you tuning in every Friday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. We go live on the News for the Soul network. Jump onto newsforthesoul.com and look for the Genuine Healing streams, and you can listen to us live 4 p.m. Fridays Pacific time. Work out what time that is for you all over the world. We've got a global audience, Jen.
Yeah, it's really exciting because, you don't know who's out there listening, but I can feel people listening, and it's really exciting for me to feel people's issues as they're listening in. So,
Do you get a sense that people are tuning in and benefiting from what we've got to say here?
not sure if consciously they're tuning in yet, but yes, I feel them energetically. And sometimes when you hear me, pause or get distracted, it's because I'm inwardly connecting with people who are suffering and they're starving for relief and they don't know where to go for it.
Just for those that may not be familiar, Jen, you are, dare I say, a world-renowned energy healer. You are highly empathic, highly in tune. You basically operate in energy. So when you hear Jen say things like, when I'm tuning into people that are listening, you are literally doing that.
Oh yeah, and I can feel their issues. And I do this 24/7. I tune into people's issues, and when I feel their angst, I can release it to a point. So people listening should be getting a little bit of relief from listening to us.
Yeah, and for those that are listening, wherever you're listening from, so either listening live on the News for the Soul platform or on any one of your podcasting platforms, distribution platforms, maybe even on YouTube. We post this on YouTube, or even on the Genuine Healing web page on our video archive. Wherever you're listening, jump onto the Genuine Healing website, genuinehealing.com with a Jen, genuinehealing.com, and jump onto the contact page and send us a message. Let us know that you're listening. Let us know what you're interested in, and we'll feed that into our programming.
Yeah, and I'm interested to know where people are from, because there's different energy things going on in different demographics. So I think the people who are in tune enough to find us and listen to us are in tune enough to make impact where they are. I think people are more empathic and more of a healer type than they actually even realize.
So today we're going to be talking about spiritual etiquette. I'll get into that in a second, but the motivation for wanting to do this particular episode is that over the coming weeks we will be inviting people to join us in the recording studio and have a one-on-one time with you, Jen, for about 10 minutes or so. And the thing about that is that we want to make sure that those interactions are positive. And so we do need to address the issue of spiritual etiquette, how to interact in a way that is uplifting. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you're interested in joining us in the studio, we do record group healing sessions, and they are for free on Fridays at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Jump onto the Genuine Healing website and then go to the on-air page. But the URL is genuinehealing.com/on-air. And so jump onto that page and then sign up for one of the free healing sessions that we're going to be doing in our recording program.
Yeah. So what's interesting is like when people come to me for help, they don't realize what their needs are. And I can already see in energy what's more problematic than they do. So when people come to me for help, their instinct is to just tell me, I'm bleeding, I'm bleeding, I'm bleeding. And it's like, yeah. And when they talk about their problems, all they're basically saying is, I'm bleeding, is help me stop bleeding. But whatever they're fixated on is not the core issue of what's causing their issue. So if they relax and just let me do my work and go into a core issue and stop trying to validate the bleeding, we understand you're bleeding. Let me do my work and just listen and be calm and let me do triage on you.
So when you make reference to bleeding, I mean that could be either literal, I am bleeding, or metaphorical, I'm bleeding energy, I have pain, I have anxiety, I have burnout, I've had a traumatic experience, I'm lacking in purpose or direction or meaning in life, any one of those things. And Jen, we understand fully well that there is a lot of need out there for healing and restitution. There are 8 billion people on the planet at the moment, which is a shocking statistic right there. But the vast majority of those 8 billion people have a deep, deep need for connecting to their inner higher self, their inner purpose, get relief from pain, anxiety, and whatever other human affliction they have. Now, the interesting thing, Jen, is that in your decades and decades of working with thousands of clients all over the world, one of the things that you've recognized very early is that the often the symptom, the pain, the anxiety, the trauma, whatever it is, the symptom is rarely connected. Well, the root cause is much deeper than the actual symptom. So let's just talk about that a little bit.
When someone comes to me, they can't see the cause and effect of what's been going on with them because they're only looking at their life from one lifetime. And I can see the past life trauma that's caused these things. So say someone comes to me and they're the black sheep of the family and they don't fit in and they think that's the big problem, wanting to fit into this family. Well, that's not the problem. The problem is that in the past lifetime, they were surrounded by the enemy. Maybe they were took in as a slave to the enemy encampment. Maybe they were like imprisoned by a bunch of hostile people. And they're not a part of that clan. So when they incarnate into a foreign clan, and everyone else is like camaraderie, has camaraderie, and they don't, it's because they are born to the enemy. So the goal isn't to become part of that clan. That's never going to happen. The goal is to just have this neutral reaction to everyone and to find yourself and not try to merge into this clan that it's destined to not work out.
So, and it begs the question, and I do need to then ask the question, what force in the universe would force you to incarnate with the enemy? Why?
Oh, it's
What kind of sick joke would that be?
no, it's not. No. It's not a sick joke at all. It's just a matter of, if you look at it in energy, it's just a matter of taking two things that hate each other and trying to have them fight it out so they can learn to love. Like when I was a little girl and I was fighting with my brother, my mother said, "Oh, I'm going to put you in the room and let you fight it out." Well, that's exactly what the universe is doing to you when it incarnates you in a family of haters.
Yeah. So basically, what I was getting at, and by the way, it was a rhetorical question.
Oh,
What I
okay.
was getting at was giving you an opportunity to explain to the listener how the universe, through many incarnations as an eternal soul, allows you to have every experience from every angle. And one of those experiences is, in fact, being born in a family to the, past life adversary. Because, in the thousands and thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands more than that, lives that you've had in this yuga alone, you will have basically interacted with lots of people, and not all of those interactions would have been clean. And the universe is giving you an opportunity to clean up the energetic imprints. That's kind of where I was getting at.
Oh, okay. But it's important to note, like, if you're going to look at yourself, in this, uh, under this stress test, you have to realize that in all your lifetimes, you weren't the perpetual victim.
Mm.
It goes with give and take. An example of that is like when I was younger, I was rubbing my brother's feet. It was a dysfunctional relationship. I was rubbing my brother's feet, and he goes, "Don't touch my baby toe because it got cut off in a past lifetime." And then I'm not sure if he knew it, but immediately I knew I was the one who cut off his toe. So
Wow.
it's like, that's why he might resent me a little bit because he remembers just that. So we tend to remember the negative interactions with someone more than the love bond, right?
Mm. And in the last episode, for those that did tune in, we were talking about your healing modality called SFT tapping, spiritual freedom technique tapping, and all of the protocols that you've developed over the years. And there's 4 or 5 primary protocols. By the way, if you're interested in learning about SFT tapping and understanding the protocols, again, jump onto the Genuine Healing website and look for the SFT tapping page on the menu at the top of the screen, and you can download the SFT tapping protocols for free. But Jen, in the energetic cleanse protocol, which is a protocol of 20 taps that has a series of blank spaces that you can then, insert whatever person, issue, situation, circumstance is bothering you. A couple of those taps is we heal and repair. We take back all the energy that was taken from us. That's kind of me as the victim. But then you flip the switch and you give back all of the energy that we have taken from this other person, situation.
Right. Right. Because you can't totally be free if you have something of someone else's that's preventing them from being a sovereign being. A lot of people have stalkers, they say, and it's like this person is following them around and wants something from them, wants in a relationship. But what I found is happening in that situation a lot of times is in a past life, energetically, you took an essence of that person and you're carrying it around as your own. And that person recognizes their own self in you. So if you have a stalker, people, the best thing to do is just go on, get that SFT energetic cleanse and give that person their energy back. And then that relationship will evaporate. It's amazing.
Mm. I always find it fascinating. What are the odds that the main relationships that you have in your life are not is not the first time you've had that relationship. So, and so, you meet a seemingly random stranger on the street and then have some kind of a connection. And lo and behold, comes to find out that you've probably had many, many lives together with that person.
Yeah, and that's great and stuff, and that's probably what people think of as love at first sight. But you got to understand if you have a attraction for someone from a past lifetime, it's that attraction that's triggering you to like wake up, but it doesn't mean the relationship is always good. So you could have like negative experiences with this person and still feel that wake up attraction of, oh, I'm remembering a past lifetime. Doesn't mean yet that you have to like get in bed with him or be bonded with them in this lifetime. It just might be this thing where you can say hello and work out, residual like peripheral karma or whatever, and just go on your merry way and be better.
That's true. but nevertheless, a lot of people do have what they call love at first sight interactions, and they do then partner up, and maybe it's not quite, the whole twin flame, scenario. And but my point is that, even if you then do partner up and the relationship does then sort of wind down, become somewhat dysfunctional, the universe is giving you an opportunity to work through, karmic stagnant energies. And maybe
Yeah,
it's just that you are required to do that for the purposes of cleaning things up. But that doesn't mean that you then need to stay with them forever.
exactly. It's and it could be one-sided. Like like this always happens to women who have been in a situation where they're abused or beaten and taken advantage of. They get out of that relationship and then get right back into another one. It's it's a different person, different face, but the same situation. That's because they have to work on themselves and remove all those engrams, programming and conditioning and patterns that tells them that's what they deserve. That's what a relationship is. In the brain, it gets really twisted that love is pain. And it's like those are the kinds of things that the SFT tapping can work out, where, hundreds and hundreds of hours of therapy may not even get to.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that. Repeated dysfunctional relationships are one of the experiences that, well, frankly, a lot of people do have. And by the way, if you, the listener, are in that scenario, jump onto the Genuine Healing website, click on the on air page, and register, sign up to join us in the studio for a free healing, because you correctly identify that those repeated dysfunctional patterns are repeating because you, the person that's having those dysfunctional repeating patterns, need to work on something. And Jen, the point is that you can help them work on it because you can see the past life engrams, the root cause that, traditional therapy will probably never get to.
Yes, and right now as you're talking, I'm seeing the pattern of someone who's listening in, maybe one or maybe a few people. Um, but it's like they love so completely. They love and they don't want to see the bad in people. They just want to love. But what's happening to them energetically is they're opening up a doorway for people to take advantage of them. So you can love as much as you want, but there's a way of learning how to love, perpetually love. I perpetually love people. And there's a way to do it so you're not taken advantage of and pulled down to the most dysfunctional, degrad, degrad, what's the word, degrad,
Degradation, yeah.
that
It's
that
okay.
possible. Because I'm in
Yeah.
energy. When I'm in energy, I can't always find the words because I'm beyond the mental realms.
That's true. Okay, so let's get on to spiritual etiquette. Now, again, the motivation for doing or focusing on this topic is that we are going to be inviting people into the recording studio for a free healing with you, Jen. You are one of the most sensitive, energetically sensitive people that I've ever met. So there are a lot of empaths out there, but you are, next level. And the thing about that is that you feel people's pain and issues before they even open their mouth, right? So here's the thing. We are going to be inviting people into the studio to share their experiences with you and us in the studio, but then ultimately the listener, as a way of helping them overcome, core fundamental issues. And the thing about that is that one of the first things in spiritual etiquette that we're going to be talking about is the negative consequences of dumping. And so when if you have a negative experience, a trauma, an anxiety, whatever, the first instinct is to tell everyone about it, dump on it, and just endlessly describe the intricate details of the trauma and pain. And the only thing that's going on there is that, you, the listener, or whoever's doing the dumping, might get some relief from that. But what you're doing is you're passing your pain onto the other person, and you're really inflicting a lot of pain on the other person. And so there's a lot to be done to teach people how to interact in a way that is positive and neutral without dumping. So can we just talk about dumping?
Yeah, well, I get it a lot because people want to make sure that I understand who they are or what they're going through. What they don't realize is I've already gone through anything that they could experience, any horrific act, anything horrific that they've experienced. I already know what it's like because I've went through it. So they just need to tell me. So these people who are trying to get others to feel their pain, um, it's pointless unless that person has had that experience themselves. And if you're trying to force it on them, you're trying to it's like dumping garbage on someone else's lawn or throwing garbage in someone else's home. It's just not done. So you have to understand what you're doing. And it doesn't bring relief. It doesn't help you at all. And it just pushes people away. And then, by the way, when you do that to someone like myself, I will have to push you away a little bit. I can still see your issues. I can always see your issues. So I don't need you to tell me what's going on with you symptomatically because you're you're just obsessed with that. You know what my pet peeve is? Is people I don't know if I've ever even told you this. People who gossip, I'm not around people who gossip anymore. I refuse to. So what people do is gossip is and listen to other people's crap. Is they're collecting the garbage of other people. And then when they get overwhelmed with their own health issues, they want to dump it on someone else. But it's like, no, you've done that. Don't do that. Don't go looking for other people's issues to collect just to entertain yourself. It's really low level consciousness, to be honest with you. And anyone who's listening here, who's aware enough to be listening here, you got to stop it. And you know who you are. The other thing I just got to say is there's a couple people tuning in who there's people who've been considered airheads. Like, oh, they're foo-foos. They're stupid. They're just like in the clouds. Well, let me help you understand what's happening when your head is in the clouds. What you're doing is operating beyond the physical and astral makeup, and you are literally tuning into a higher consciousness. And then when you go so high beyond the mental realm, it's not easy to articulate what you're experiencing because there's no reference point here. So one of the things Marvin and I are hoping to do here is to create more of a reference point in how you're operating when you seem foo-foo, but you're just tuning into the other realms and you don't know how to bring it back. Either you're afraid to bring it back because you think people will think you're crazy, or you don't even know how to articulate it. So we're putting form to thought.
Yeah. And can I just say that it is a real discipline to be able to interact, particularly with very energetically sensitive people, in a neutral way, because the tendency is to over-explain, to try to justify yourself, to share your experiences at an intricate level of detail, and it's not helpful. So, there's a lot. Well, it
So
takes a lot of discipline. Can I just put it that way? But number one in that whole discipline is be aware of what you're doing. And I think that's what we're doing here is we're drawing attention to the issue because a lot of people are simply not aware of how negative, Nelly, and gloomy Gus their interactions are with other people.
yeah, and so here's the thing. Here's an edumacation moment. It's like when people interact with me, they're like all over the place, right? And it's like their ego is in charge. Their ego is trying to tell me where to help them. No, I want this to look like this. I want your help to look like this. And that's not how it works. So energetically, to if I even am vested in this person, if they're even worth getting through to, which most people for me are worth it, I will help them lob off pieces of their ego that are getting in the way of us communicating. Now, when I do this, I'm trying to shrink the ego into a form that we can work with, that we can work past. It doesn't feel good. On the surface, when I address the ego and shrink it, the person will register that as their feelings being hurt. Or if I'm really helping them, they'll think I'm a total bitch. But it's not. The love is incredible to be able to get past that ego to see how much pain they are really in. So I ignore the ego and work with the higher self and the conscious self so they can reconnect. It's really profound, but you got to get over the ego getting its feelings hurt or being afraid to, receive.
What's going to be really interesting is when, in the coming weeks, when we do have people joining us in the studio and interacting with you, it's going to be really interesting to see how they are able to start a conversation and as an entry point into you helping them heal without them sort of doing their tendency to, over explain. That's going to be a fascinating thing. And so, if you are interested in coming on air with us, be aware of the dumping propensity if you're a dumper. And Jen, you're going to gently, in the healing sessions, you're going to be gently redirecting them. So if they are starting to dump and you say something like, let me just stop you there, you know, you're not trying to cut them off, you're not trying to diminish them, you're not trying to do anything like that. What you're really saying to them is you already understand the root cause issues, probably at a level of depth that the other person doesn't even realize themselves. So when you say something like, let me just stop you there, what you're doing is you're getting the ego out of the way so that you can do what you need to do the real energy shifting work. That's what people actually want. They want the relief.
Right. And so when I talk to someone and I'm helping them, it's on multi-levels that I'm interacting with them. So they're trying to like vomit all their shit onto me, just trying to get rid of it. That's what the ego wants. But what I'm doing is I'm talking to their higher self, and I got to calm down the ego so that the higher self can come through and talk to me and tell me what the issues are. I'm also reading their past life traumas. And I'm also seeing the whole trauma of the past lives that brought them to this issue. I'm seeing their dynamics in their lives right now and how, frustrated they are. And I'm trying to be pleasant and cute on the surface. It doesn't always happen. But I want to let people know how you help in the healing, because I'm not even sure you realize how important you are to my healing. You've listened to thousands and thousands of my sessions before we got together, and you saw how defensive I was in the early years. That's because that was the only defense I had, was to push the ego out from consuming me. But now with your healing help, you keep me safe and you're my spotter. So now I can be calm and sweet with people as much as possible and not feel like my own boundaries are being compromised. So it's really important what you do.
Thank you for saying that. So just so the listener knows, in all of particularly our 12-week transformation sessions programs, the client is on with both Jen and I. So it's a three-way interaction in these healing sessions. So it's a fairly new thing. Previously, it was just you and the client, but now it's you, me, and the client, because we're tag teaming on this kind of thing. Let's get back to the spiritual etiquette bit. What else would you like to say? Well, let's just change the conversation into a more positive aspect. And by the way, this isn't just about spirituality and foo-foo. This is real common sense life advice as well. We're, in a lot of ways, what we're doing is we're really teaching, well, maybe reteaching, but either teaching or reteaching people how to actually interact in a positive, neutral way with people. Because what I've found, and it's not a recent phenomenon, but social media has the tendency to drive people right down to the lowest common denominator, and the
Right.
the interactions online are just despicable in for the most part. So, things have gone a little bit south in the last, let's call it, decade or so. But, what you really want is you want to have positive, engaging interactions with people. And if you do that, then people are going to be drawn to you. So
Mm.
if you find that, a lot of people, you find difficulty in having social interactions, just have a look at yourself and the way that you interact with people. And if you're always talking about negative things and judging and gossiping and those kinds of things, those are the actual energetic imprints that you are dumping onto other people, and other people are sensitive in energy, and they recoil and they go, no, I can't deal with that. And that may in fact be the root cause of your challenged social interactions.
Well, yes. And if you want to know the past life thing that's going on, is in past lifetimes, a crowd is a very toxic thing for people. I mean, think of it, in a past lifetime, the only time you came into a crowd is when you were being executed or you were on trial or something like that. So when people go into a group setting, that engram and muscle memory of feeling defensive kicks into play. So then they're like defensive, and then they're playing to the room. They're trying to win the room over as if it's life and death. And so that's an old past engram. What they have to do is recognize that and realize that they're safe and protected in that moment. I have the story of this girl who reached out to me on social media a few years ago. She was suicidal. Everyone hated her. She didn't know why everyone hated her. She was empathic, but everyone hated her. I tuned into her and what she was doing. What she was doing is a form of defensiveness, and she was scanning everyone that she interacted with, meaning she was looking at them from energetic, not her physical eyes, but energetic eyes, and she was seeing their weaknesses. Now she was reading their past life issues and seeing where their trauma was, and she knew how to attack them in energy, not knowing how to use it and not even knowing she was doing that, but that's what she was doing. She was like in attack mode in energy. And she said people didn't like her. Well, of course they didn't like her. They didn't want to be attacked. So it's like people are doing this all over. We're trained now to be in attack mode. And you got to like realize that that's a trigger. And you can remove the past life engrams of being attacked using the SFT protocol. And then
Mm.
you can relax your energy. And then instead of going to a room and looking for everyone's weaknesses, judging them, trying to make everyone like you, go into the room and just be calm in your center, knowing that energetic interactions are happening, and look for the best in everyone. Energetically give them a heartfelt compliment in energy, and you'll see a total shift in the room and how people react to you.
What is always reaffirming for me is that the the response that you get from a complete stranger, maybe in your supermarket, maybe on the bus, maybe just walking on the street, and you look at them, and just smile, and then it's so uplifting. Try it out if you're listening. The next time you're out in public, rather than walking around with your head down with a stern kind of look in your face, just look at someone and meet them in the eye and just smile. And you don't need to say anything at all, and watch the reaction. It is truly heartwarming.
Yeah, so I do that. I came into this life doing that. They used to call me Smiley as a kid because I was always smiling. But I do that, and it's harder in Australia because people in Australia keep to themselves. So I didn't tell you this, but yesterday I was in the car waiting for you to come out of a store, and there were two guys, loading the car, and one was, you know, i- mentally challenged, and the other guy was helping him and stuff. And the guy, I just looked, And this guy who was helping him just gave me the most heartfelt smile. And it just fed me. It was just fed me. And I was so happy to have that. There was an exchange. It was literal energetic food. But here's the thing. You can't do that. You can't go out and smile at everyone to get fed, or else it taints it. I had a sister who griped at me once. She goes, I just smiled at that person and they just didn't do anything. She was so angry at that because she could get a smile out of anyone. I go, then you're not giving, are you? You're doing it. It's conditional. It's not a form of giving, it's a form of taking. So no wonder they didn't smile at you. They knew that.
Kind of, well, we've spoken a little bit about from the perspective of the perpetrator of, dysfunctional spiritual etiquette or even just social etiquette. But what if you're on the receiving end? And I'm particularly thinking about, younger people who are at school or perhaps college, in a job environment or in a social gathering, and the people around them are not behaving in a appropriate etiquette. How do you deal with that if you're at the receiving end of judgment, of negativity, if someone's dumping on you?
So there's a technique that I use, and we learned it as children and we forgot it. I'm the rubber, you're the glue. Anything you say bounces off me and sticks to you. It's an energetic thing. So what you do is you stay in your center, so profound, so full of light that whatever someone says to you bounces off you and goes on to them. I watched this. I was in the younger days, I was on the city bus, a single girl, and there was a group of guys around me trying to target me, starting to like attack me energetically. And I put this wall up, and the first guy, the leader, said something rude to me. And I watched it go right back to him, and then he shriveled up, and they all left me alone. And I said, wow, I'm going to use that more. But
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, because I'm having a conversation with the people who are listening too, and there's things that they want to hear. And so when you talk about someone who's young and energetic and targeted, there's ways to be targeted for people to take your energy. And there's three things that they do. They compliment you. So when someone's stroking your ego, and usually they're priming you to take some energy from you. So don't fall for it. They ask you a question. They want when you agree to receive a question, you're actually allowing someone in to interact with you. I remember being on a street corner and someone was proselytizing their religion, and he tried to hand me a flyer, and I said no, thank you. He goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And then instinctively I said no. Shut him right down, and it was done. The interaction is done. And the other thing is, people will drag you along by promising you something that you want. And if they don't deliver, it's because they're just pruning you to like take from you long term.
I think what you've described in the priming or opening question and stroking the ego and complimenting, I think you've just described the toolkit behaviors of every successful salesperson.
Yeah, maybe.
So, it's interesting, if you are in sales, how do you do sales in an ethical way? But I recognize the behaviors that you're describing as the kinds of behaviors that, every high ticket salesperson does. Think about a new car salesman or even a used car salesman. So, you go into a store, or a car lot, and you're just looking around, you're just curious, and the salesperson comes up to you, and the first thing that they do is they try and prime you. They're opening you up, and You know, their sport is the sale, closing the deal. That's their sport, and they're very good at it. A lot of people.
Right. But if you roll forward 20 years, there's a stereotypical of the beaten down salesperson and stuff because what's happened to them is they put too much investment in and their white whale of trying to sell to people and they've depleted their own energy in that. And by the way, that's when a smile is like we were talking about smiles. Salesmen, that's their first entry opening is the smile. They'll smile back and then, yep.
Mm. Um, what do you want the listener to know about healing? And let me just help you, well, let me help prime you so we can have this conversation. So you are a healer. You're very good at it. You're you're just next level. And I've been around the traps in the energy healing world for a while. Um, but the other thing that, so people get a lot of benefit in working with you in the healing process, right? And so that's why, people come to you. But the other thing that I think you want people to know is that you also, as well as working with you, you also need them to take responsibility for their own healing. And so that they're not just a passive victim. And what I'm getting at here is that your clients that come to you thinking that you're going to take on all of their shit and just heal them, and all they need to do is sit back and think of England. It's not the way it works.
Yeah, so the thing I want people to know about the healing is the love is the conduit. The reason I'm such a fantastic healer is because I truly am capable of loving anybody. And you've seen it. You've seen how I love not anybody but anything. And you'll come in and I'll be like talking to a plushie, or I'll be talking to a planter, talking to a bug that I'm putting outside. Not a spider, you take care of those. But but the but it's like you can see the love and interaction there, and that's the love soup. So healing, true healing happens in love soup. And it's not about me or you getting our wants met. It's almost like there's this lump of lard in your body. Say your issue is a lump of lard, past life trauma and stuff. We just use the love to melt the issues. And we use the tapping to to show your conscious brain that you're capable of doing this. Because if you didn't have the tapping, it would be so abstract to your physical self that you wouldn't make the connection that we can just melt away the pain and just remove it. Can you say that better?
Possibly. So the purpose of the tapping is it gives you, the client, a role in their own healing, right? So you're directing the healing. You're the conductor in the orchestra, but in any orchestra, there are instruments and there are players, and you need to play your role in your own healing. So you use SFT tapping as a modality to do that, and it's very effective. So during a 1 hour healing session, you're tuning into the client's past life engrams, you're connecting the dots between the root cause and the symptom, you're addressing the ego and the higher self, and you're constructing SFT taps that the client then does in and alongside you. But when the client is doing the SFT tapping at your direction, it's them doing their bit in the healing process. And you often, in fact, I think I've always seen you do this. You always give homework
Hmm.
so that after the session, and even in the 12-week transformation sessions program, so every week you're getting together for 12 weeks in a concentrated transformation intervention. There's always homework, and that homework and the doing of the homework is your way of taking control of your own healing so that you're not a victim.
Yes. So a healing session with myself is an agreement between me and the person who wants the healing. Now, there's the dynamic going on in energy that might not be, you see it now, Marvin, because you understand it. But when people say no, or they argue with me, or they make a joke, what they're saying is, I don't agree to this. So they're not taking responsibility for what's happening inwardly. And you hate it when I ask clients, do you feel a shift? Do you feel like this? And that's one time they say no, but if they feel something, it means they're opening up their awareness from being in a linear conversation to knowing what's happening underneath the surface. With the iceberg, where the physical self is just the tip of the iceberg. And the session with me is happening to all the way to the base core of this huge iceberg. And some people can't handle it, so they'll try to push me off by arguing or whatever. And that's fine, that's their choice. But the more they can agree to allow this dance and energy that we do, the more they can feel total relief. And oh, by the way, I see trajectories, meaning I can see the shift after someone does the taps, or after they have a session. I can sometimes tell them, well, this is going to happen because, you're a different person now. It's a different trajectory. Sometimes it happens and it doesn't even matter, but it's a way to help let the people know that the healing isn't just in a vacuum. It changes the whole outcome of their existence if they allow it to, the more they agree to it.
So there's a couple of things that I want to respond to. When I first became aware of you about 5 or 6 years ago, and I had my first healing session with you, I remember you asking me, do you feel this in this part of my body? And I genuinely said no, because I don't really feel the energy shifts. And so I was just being completely honest. But the way that I approached it is, um, I I understand. I have an awareness of the process, the healing process. The fact that I don't feel, a tingling in this part of the body is neither here nor there for me. I'm confident that the healing, the shifting of the energy takes place. So I have that as a thing. One of the reasons why I sometimes cringe, and this could just be a cultural thing, because obviously I'm Australian. Your background is in America, Jen, and we've got listeners from all over the world. So this could be a cultural thing, but one of the reasons why I often cringe when you're asking these affirmative questions is that a lot of people will then say just yes, just to placate you, even if they kind of really meant no. So that's kind of that aspect.
But
Um,
But I know it. If they're just saying yes to appease me, I know that. And then that's more of an assessment of who they are and their boundaries. Go on.
So the other thing that I wanted to say, that's the end of that topic. The other thing that I wanted to say is that some clients have real, deeply connected issues that you're working with them, even in the 12-week transformation program. So it's not a one-off interaction or a transaction. There's
Right.
this kind of ongoing program of work. Some clients have really core, deeply connected issues that their ego sometimes fights you on during the sessions. And so and the one of the greatest impediments to your own healing is when the ego gets involved, because the ego wants to defend itself against all of these, egregious things that the ego deems to have been done to them. But what you're doing is you're saying, whoa, stop. You got to look at your own contribution to whatever circumstance that you're facing. And that's something that the ego sometimes has a bit of a challenge in dealing with.
Right, because the ego doesn't see the whole picture. The ego only sees its gratification. And that's why the SFT tapping is so great, because the tapping bypasses the ego to connect to the higher self and do what's better for the whole self um, no matter what the ego wants. So the more that people do the SFT tap and work with me, you'll see them soften and shift and change, and it's really beautiful. I want to say something about your first session. Your first session was not normal because you were being aligned to do this work, and I knew it when you were coming in, because as soon as you said to me, "I'm divorced," in my mind I went, "Ta-ching! This is my new husband," and stuff. Out of the blue, after dry docking it for decades, I targeted you as my husband. So there's something there.
It was a bit
And
of a
the other
different
thing,
session.
and the other thing is, you have been like, I think when we first started out, you were a little bit more rigid than you are now. You're more, and it's adorable for me when I see him open up to energy. Like he's having conversations with the puppies now. When we first got the puppies, they were just like mechanical little, "I want woo woos and wee wees. Get out there and do your business." And it was very mechanical. So I love it when he has like philosophical talks with the dogs. And you talk to plushies too, because when we have plushies in the house, because it's my way of training, um, um, thinning the line between inanimate and animate, because I think that's important for healing and awareness and higher consciousness. So we have talking Elmo on the lap of Big Bear. And I didn't prompt you at all, and you said, "Big Bear looks really exhausted. Elmo won't shut the freak up." Remember that? You saw that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell
No, it's a well, little Elmo is he just has that facial expression where he's just constantly talking it out, and so all
and
the other plushies that are around Elmo, they just get exhausted. Which, by the way,
yeah,
is an interesting segue back to our topic of
wait,
conversation, which is spiritual etiquette.
but wait, tell them how we solved the problem of talking Elmo.
Yeah, so what we ended up doing, because all we moved little Elmo, from one bear plushie to another bear plushie, and they're all exhausted after a little while. So we ultimately shifted Elmo into our indoor plant, and so now he's talking the plant's ear off. And by the way, this is a bit of a segue back into the topic of conversation around spiritual etiquette, because what it really highlights, even in the plushie world with little Elmo, is that when you're constantly talking it out in a negative way, it does, people get exhausted by being around that. So don't do that. Jen, we need to wind up a little bit. I just wanted to, just as we do wind down, thank you for tuning in, listening to us, for those that made it for the whole 55 minutes. Really appreciate that. Come and jump onto the Genuine Healing website on the contact page. Come and say hello, and let us know a little bit about yourself, and become part of the Genuine Healing family, because we do have a group of people that are really learning how to connect in a higher consciousness way and adhere to spiritual etiquette, which is the topic of this conversation. If you want to come and join us in the studio and be part of an upcoming episode, jump onto the Genuine Healing website and click on the on air page. And the URL is genuinehealing.com/on-air. Jump onto that, book your next session, and we look forward to seeing you on camera. Thank you to the listener. Thank you, Jen, for being with us. Look forward to catching you next time. Bye for now.
Bye for now, everyone.